Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of North Korean Movie Reviews, where today we will be looking at yet another film made in our beloved socialist paradise, North Korea. This time around, we are looking at the film Traffic Controller on Crossroads, which was directed by Choi Pun-ki and was released in 1986 in the DPRK. The story begins with the traffic controller named Eun-suk, who is the captain of post number 15 near an intersection in Pyongyang. Eun-suk is portrayed as a rigid, no-nonsense traffic cop who makes no exceptions to those who would infract upon the nation's driving laws. Among these people is a man named Kyung-chan, who is a driver for a local produce store. One day while driving, Kyung-chan offers to deliver a washing machine to a woman's home after work is over. After loading the washing machine, he speeds off and attempts to cross into another lane while speeding, nearly causing an accident. Kyung-chan is immediately ordered to stop by Eun-suk, where she promptly asks for his ID and driver's license and asks him where he's going. He quickly explains that he works for a meat store and is in the middle of a delivery. Eun-suk is quick to discover the washing machine in his truck and accuses him of using his work for personal use. Caught red-handed, he's brought into the station where he's told he will lose his driver's license and his truck will be confiscated. And you thought the DMV was bad. Just before he's pulled through the ringer, however, another traffic controller brings in another frequent violator, Namchol, who happens to be Kyung-chan's friend. Namchol is a chauffeur for a local institute of science and is frequently caught speeding or running stop signs. Both are about to be dealt with harshly before yet again another person saves the day. Only this time it's Namchol's girlfriend, Yoonok, who is also good friends with Eun-suk. Yoonok tries to convince Eun-suk to release him with a warning, but Eun-suk is distraught as she believes firmly in enforcing the law, but also doesn't wish to disappoint her friend. Fast forward to later on that day when Eun-suk returns home to a large dinner her parents have prepared. Her parents instruct her to get ready as they are awaiting a guest. Lo and behold, when Eun-suk goes to answer the door, the belated guest is none other than Kyung-chan. The people he was delivering the dishwasher to were Eun-suk's parents. Surprised and embarrassed, Eun-suk quickly retreats into the kitchen before he could properly recognize her as she was in uniform. As he's let inside by Eun-suk's parents, Kyung-chan explains his belatedness on the traffic controller who had detained him earlier. Unaware of the fact that Eun-suk is their daughter, she listens quietly in the other room as he derides her as beautiful but unforgiving and uptight. Kyung-chan is then treated to dinner from her parents for delivering their machine. It isn't until Kyung-chan notices a traffic uniform hung in an open closet that he begins to suspect that it was Eun-suk he'd seen at the door. All the while, however, an embarrassed and smitten Eun-suk remains hidden away in the kitchen. The next day at the office, Eun-suk is seen laughing about the encounter with her co-workers as she heads out to her post for the day. Upon seeing Kyung-chan in his car again, she refuses to pay any attention to him as he passes by, further ingraining his distaste for her. He attempts to take the long route home to avoid running into her, and instead comes across Namchol privately conversing with his girlfriend, Yoonok, who is distraught. Kyung-chan presses Namchol as to what happened, but he deflects the question and walks away. We then get to see Eun-suk attending a presentation by a group of young girls who are singing a lovely song about a zebra who was run over and killed by a car, and how he deserved it because he was jaywalking. Talk about fucking hardcore. Eun-suk then tells everyone that rules and their strict enforcement are necessary to ensure the safety and pleasure for everyone. After that lovely propaganda lesson, Eun-suk learns from her friend that Namchol's mother wasn't in attendance to the meeting, as though it were compulsive to attend. She travels to her home to discover that she is ill. It is here that we learned what Namchol and his girlfriend were talking about earlier. Namchol is engaged to Yunok, but since Yunok is the only daughter in her family, Yunok's mother wants her to marry a man who can move in with them. Namchol obviously can't do that, however, seeing as how his mother is sick.
아니, 예술체조 지도원이요? 이름이 뭔데요? 이름이 뭐라든가요? 윤옥이. 알아요, 윤옥이. 빨리 가시자요. 오늘 우리 식당에
The next day, while walking with her mother, she learns that Yunok had come over the day before and asked if Eun-seok was alright, saying that she felt being a traffic controller had changed Eun-seok from a nice, sweet girl to an arrogant, unforgiving person. Her mother also tells her about Gyeongchan taking another road instead of having to drive by her every morning, which results in many deliveries being late. Learning about all of this, Eun-seok begins to wonder whether or not she chose the right career, and feels she is being too hard on everyone. In an effort to see if this is true, she stops by Gyeongchan's work to speak with his manager. His manager describes him as a hard-working individual who works tirelessly to repair and drive the cars. Eun-seok relents that she may have been too hard on him. She thanks the manager and then leaves. Not before Gyeongchan spots her, however, and immediately thinks she's come to his work to nag him since he doesn't go down her route anymore. Another co-worker explains that she's just doing her job and is trying to help him, but Gyeongchan won't have any of it and dismisses her once again. Later on that day, we see a seemingly melancholy Eun-seok taking a stroll by a river, presumably pondering her past actions. Her train of thought is interrupted when she notices Yunok walking with some of her friends. Eun-seok quickly approaches Yunok and attempts to reconcile with her. She apologizes to Yunok, who graciously accepts and invites Eun-seok to watch one of her gymnastic performances she's heading to. In a further attempt to reconcile with Yunok, Eun-seok accepts her invitation and attends. After the performance, Eun-seok briefly converses with Yunok and gives her some advice about her situation with Namchol. Eun-seok then returns to her office late at night to find two other officers still inside. Puzzled by this, Eun-seok asks them why they haven't gone home yet. One girl explains that several high-profile drivers are deliberately avoiding their post because they feel the traffic girls are too harsh with enforcing the law. Eun-seok pauses for a moment and then begins to tell them a story. 2 years earlier, when Eun-seok first started working as a traffic controller, there was always a young man who would violate the regulations. She relented in punishing him, however, due to the fact that he was young. Until one day, the young man caused a horrible accident that injured several people. The young man lost his driver's license, and that was that. Eun-seok later learned from the man's mother that his father had been killed in a car accident, and that she blames herself for allowing her son to become a driver as well. Eun-seok explains that had she simply done her job and enforced the law, the horrible accident would have never happened. She goes on to say that it's not with pleasure that she is so strict, but that it's simply her job to enforce the law and nothing more. And that if she doesn't do precisely that, then more and more people will follow in that man's footsteps. Fast forward to the next day, and we see Namchol confronted by one of the traffic girls yet again, this time for parking directly in front of a no parking sign. He's referred to the office when Eun-suk arrives. She asks bluntly why he violates the rules so often. Namchol grows angry with Eun-suk, telling her she wouldn't understand and to just get it over with and punish him already. This makes Eun-suk furious, who then chastises him for daring to assume that all they care about is punishing people.
책벌이나 주자고 인대거리에 서 있는 것 같아요.
아니, 그럼
덕문 뭐예요?
Later that night, Namchol is dropped off by Kyungchan. He returns home to find Yoonok talking with his mother. His mother revealed that it was Eun-suk who had brought her there, and that it was Eun-suk who'd helped them to find a way to be together.
그렇지만 이번 일을 두고 그가 얼마나 이 거리의 행복을 지켜주기 위해서 진심으로 애쓰는가 하는 걸 똑똑히 알게 됐어요.
The next morning, Namchol's boss, the scientist he's been driving around, stops by post number 15 to speak with Eun-suk. He tells her that he's heard everything about what happened with Namchol and offers an apology, saying that he's responsible for hurrying Namchol so that he could focus on his work. He thanks Eun-suk for enforcing the rules and promises never to do it again. Eun-suk shyly accepts his apology and informs him that she must work the night shift as well. It's here that we reach the movie's climax. It's nighttime, and Eun-suk and a fellow officer, Gumok, are on duty. They order an Isuzu truck that's driving erratically to stop. They talk briefly with the driver and seize his car. It's then we see Kyungchan falling in and out of sleep behind the wheel as he struggles to stay in his own lane. Eun-suk orders the vehicle to stop and confronts Kyungchan once more. She takes his license and tells him to wait, drawing more insults from Kyungchan, who calls her annoying. She orders Gumok to tell him he must sleep for 1 hour before he can continue. While she does this, Eun-suk approaches a truck seemingly broken down on the road. She approaches the man working underneath the truck. The man identifies himself as a worker from the Anju mines. He was carrying dynamite from Nampo when his truck broke down in the city center. He explains that the fan belt as well as 2 transmission gears are broken, and that he must get the dynamite to Anju before it rains, or it'll become useless. The fact that dynamite is tucked away in steel barrels which should naturally protect it from the rain is irrelevant. Given this information, Eun-suk scurries off to help the poor man. Kyungchan awakens sometime later to find Gumok and asks her when they can leave. Gumok explains that it was Eun-suk who'd ordered them to sleep because he looked exhausted and was worried about him. Shocked by the unexpected kindness from her, he has a change of heart and rushes to find her working to replace the spare parts in the man's vehicle. Just how she was able to find the exact parts to an imported vehicle in the middle of the night in North Korea, all within walking distance, is never explained. As he watches her fix the car in the pouring rain, he stops and thinks back to every interaction he's ever had with her. He realizes that every stop, every infraction, or every ticket she ever gave him wasn't out of spite, rather an urge for him to obey the laws and to drive safely. Gumok, remembering that Kyungchan is an expert at repairing cars, enlists him to help Eun-suk. He repairs the engine with ease and sets the driver on his way, but not before having a heart-to-heart with Eun-suk. Kyungchan thanks her for everything she's done for him, both on the roads and behind the scenes. He begs her to forget the past and promises to obey the laws in the future.
지나간 일을 다 잊어주시오.
경찬 동무, 뭘 그래요?
조수장 동무.
참.
The movie ends with the same musical number that it began with, showing Eun-suk at the same post number 15, directing traffic with the same stout appearance she's renowned for. Her renewed sense of purpose allowing for the occasional smile when a now law-abiding Kyungchan or Namchol passes her by. She's awarded by the party for her efforts in traffic enforcements, and the movie closes with Eun-seok surrounded by friends and co-workers as her beautiful smile sets upon the streets she loves and protects. Overall, this movie was difficult for me to review. Not because it's bad or poorly written, it's just that there really isn't much to say. There isn't any bad acting worth pointing out, and the paper-thin storyline doesn't leave much to discuss besides what's directly laid out in front of you. There's little in the way of character interaction, and any hints at intimacy or romance are stopped cold by the iron boot of socialist propaganda and North Korean censorship standards. I think the strangest thing about this movie is its setting. A movie about law enforcement is one thing, but this is about a female traffic enforcer whom are only found in Pyongyang, where only about 12% of the population live. Adding on the fact that approximately only 1.1% of North Koreans own a car, it really begs the question as to why this movie exists. I understand that it's not about the cars themselves, it's about obeying the laws and that police officers don't exist simply to be mean, but to enforce said laws. I'm just saying I would find this movie hard to relate to even if I was a North Korean. If it sounds like I'm shitting all over this movie, I'm not. For what it is, I enjoy the movie a lot and it does have some positive aspects. For one, the movie is very light on the propaganda. While there are references to socialism, working for the welfare of the people and whatnot, it's snugly woven into general conversation, and not belted out in some robotic speech that is so commonly found in other North Korean films like Abroad Bellflower. The film's one speech, in fact, which is about Eun-seok's incident with a young driver 2 years prior, is actually just a personal story about why she is the way she is, and that she still blames herself for this accident. The director of the film had the chance to go for a bombastic socialist propaganda bout, and didn't. And that in of itself is worthy of praise. It's also worth noting that there aren't any mentions of Kim Il-sung or any great general at all, which makes this film different from almost every contemporary North Korean film for its time. The film is also great if you're a fan of gender equality, as all of the people in power in this movie are women. It's also potentially interesting for people who like cars, as it gives you a sense of what cars existed in the country at that time. Japanese cars like Isuzus, as well as Soviet cars like Gaz and Lada are clearly seen. No Trabants though, so, -1 star right there. All in all, this is a great North Korean film to start with if you've never seen one before, especially since it's only an hour long, which honestly to me is expected because just how long could you make a film about enforcing traffic laws? Still, the film's light propaganda, lightheartedness, and, I can't believe I'm saying this about a North Korean movie, moral point of view coupled with the aforementioned short runtime make this an easy film to watch if you're bored, high, or just enjoy films of this nature like me.